Have you ever looked back at your life and realized you've lived the same story more than once? Different people, different jobs, different cities, different years. Yet somehow, the ending always feels strangely familiar. Perhaps you've promised yourself, this time will be different, and for a while, it is. Until one day, you find yourself having the same argument, making the same mistake, feeling the same disappointment, wondering how you ended up in a place you've already been. Most of us explain these moments in simple ways: bad luck, poor timing, the wrong people, the wrong opportunity. But Carl Jung believes something much deeper might be happening. He suggested that beneath our conscious thoughts, there are powerful emotional patterns, quietly influencing the way we see the world. Patterns that can shape our choices, our relationships, our fears, and even the future we believe we're freely creating. He called these hidden forces complexes, not because they make us broken, but because they can quietly take control without us ever realizing it. According to Jung, the greatest prison is not the one we can see, it is the one we mistake for our own mind. In this video, we'll explore why so many people repeat the same emotional patterns throughout their lives, how Carl Jung discovered one of the hidden mechanisms behind them, and why recognizing a complex may be the first real step toward genuine freedom. Imagine watching someone touch a hot stove. The first time, they pull their hand away in pain. The second time, they are careful. But if they continue touching it again and again, despite knowing exactly what will happen, we instinctively assume something deeper is going on. Yet we rarely ask the same question about our own lives. How many people have found themselves in the same relationship with a different face, the same disappointment in a different career, the same fear in a completely new situation? From the outside, everything appears to have changed, but somehow the emotional experience remains remarkably familiar. Most of us explain these patterns by blaming circumstances. We tell ourselves we simply chose the wrong partner, the wrong job, the wrong opportunity. And so we try again, believing that different circumstances will finally produce a different outcome. Sometimes they do, but often the pattern quietly returns. Carl Jung believed this happens because we tend to focus on what is changing around us while overlooking what remains unchanged within us. The people may be different, the places may be different, the years may be different, but if the same unconscious pattern continues guiding our perceptions and reactions, we may unknowingly recreate the very experiences we hope to leave behind. That is why life can sometimes feel as though it is repeating itself, not because the world refuses to change, but because something inside us continues responding to the world in the same way. According to Jung, these repeating patterns are rarely accidents. They often point toward hidden emotional structures that quietly influence the way we think, feel, and act. Structures that developed long before we became aware of them. And until they become conscious, they can shape our lives far more than we realize. Perhaps the most surprising part is this: the problem is not that we repeat our mistakes. The problem is that we often believe we are making completely new choices, when in reality, we may be following the same invisible map we have carried for years. At the beginning of the 20th century, Carl Jung was working as a young psychiatrist at the Burg-Hölzli Hospital in Switzerland. Like many scientists of his time, he wanted to understand something that couldn't be seen, not the body, but the hidden workings of the human mind. To explore this, he designed a series of remarkably simple experiments. A person would sit across from him. Jung would say a single word: mother, money, home, love. The instructions were simple. Respond with the very first word that comes to mind. Most of the time, people answered immediately. But every so often, something unexpected happened. A person would hesitate, forget the word, laugh nervously, repeat the question, or respond with an emotion that seemed completely out of proportion. The word itself hadn't changed, but something inside the person had. Jung realized that certain words were touching hidden emotional centers within the psyche, places where powerful memories, beliefs, fears, and emotions had become tightly connected. He called these hidden emotional structures complexes. A complex is not simply a memory, nor is it a single emotion. It is a network of experiences gathered around a deeply meaningful emotional theme. It might grow around rejection, failure, control, abandonment, or the feeling of never being good enough. Most of the time, we are completely unaware that these patterns exist, yet they quietly shape the way we interpret the world. Two people can experience the very same situation and leave with completely different conclusions, not because reality was different, but because each person's complex interpreted reality in its own way. That is what makes complexes so powerful. They rarely announce themselves. They don't say, "A childhood wound is influencing your decision." Instead, they whisper something much more convincing. "This is just who you are." And when we believe that voice, we may spend years defending a pattern, without ever realizing it was never our true nature to begin with. The most remarkable thing about a complex is not that it exists. It is that we usually don't recognize when it has taken control. Imagine receiving a short message from someone you care about. It simply says, "We need to talk." For one person, those 4 words mean almost nothing. They'll assume it's an ordinary conversation. For another, they immediately trigger anxiety. Their mind begins imagining the worst. Did I do something wrong? Are they angry with me? Is this the end? The message is identical. The reaction is completely different. According to Jung, this is how a complex often reveals itself. It quietly steps between us and reality. Instead of seeing what is actually happening, we begin seeing the world through an old emotional pattern. A criticism feels like rejection. A disagreement feels like abandonment. A mistake feels like proof that we were never good enough. In those moments, we believe we're reacting to the present, but in many cases, we're responding to something much older. That is why complexes can be so difficult to recognize. They don't feel like habits. They feel like reality. Jung believed that a complex behaves almost like an independent personality for a brief moment. It captures our attention, shapes our emotions, and influences our decisions before the conscious mind has time to reflect. Afterward, when the emotion fades, we often look back and ask ourselves, "Why did I react so strongly? Why did I say that? Why does this keep happening to me?" The answer is rarely that we are irrational. More often, an old emotional pattern has been activated, and for a few moments, it was speaking louder than our conscious mind. That is why people can repeat the same conflict, the same fear, or the same painful decision, even when they sincerely want their lives to change. Because until the pattern becomes visible, it quietly continues leading the way. One of Jung's most profound insights is that we rarely repeat our lives. We repeat ourselves. From the outside, the story appears different every time. A different relationship, a different workplace, a different city, a different opportunity. Yet somehow, the emotional ending feels strangely familiar. The person who always fears rejection keeps finding situations that seem to confirm it. The one who believes they must prove their worth never feels their achievements are enough. The one who expects disappointment often notices it long before they notice everything that is going well. It can begin to feel as though life is treating us unfairly, as though the same misfortune follows us wherever we go. Jung suggested another possibility. Perhaps life is not repeating itself. Perhaps an unconscious pattern is quietly guiding the way we interpret each new experience. A complex doesn't force us to make certain choices. It influences what captures our attention, what we expect, what we fear, and what we believe about ourselves. Over time, those expectations shape our decisions, and those decisions begin creating lives that look remarkably similar, not because the world has stopped offering new possibilities, but because we keep approaching those possibilities through the same emotional lens. This is why changing the outside is not always enough. A new relationship cannot erase an old fear. A new career cannot silence an old belief. A new beginning does not automatically create a new pattern. Wherever we go, we take our unconscious mind with us. That is why some people spend years searching for a different life, when what they truly need is a different relationship with the hidden patterns already living inside them. According to Jung, lasting change rarely begins when our circumstances change. It begins the moment we recognize that the invisible story we've been repeating does not have to become the rest of our life. If complexes are powerful, does that mean we are trapped by them? Carl Jung believed the answer is no, but he also believed that freedom begins in a very different place than most people expect. Our first instinct is usually to fight the pattern, to suppress it, to convince ourselves that we should stop feeling what we feel. But that rarely works. What we refuse to understand has a way of returning, sometimes more quietly, sometimes more forcefully. Jung believed that psychological change begins with something much simpler: awareness, noticing the pattern without immediately trying to escape it. The next time an emotion feels unusually intense, instead of asking, "How do I get rid of this?" we might ask, "Why does this affect me so deeply?" That question changes everything. Instead of fighting the emotion, we become curious about it. Instead of judging ourselves, we begin listening. According to Jung, every complex carries a story. Not a story about who we truly are, but a story about what we once experienced. A fear that was never fully understood. A wound that never had the chance to heal. A belief that quietly became part of our identity. When those hidden stories become conscious, something remarkable begins to happen. The complex may still appear, but it no longer arrives unnoticed. For the first time, there is a small space between the emotion and our response. Within that space, choice becomes possible. Perhaps this is what real freedom looks like. Not never feeling fear, not never becoming angry, but recognizing when an old pattern is speaking before we allow it to speak for us. Because according to Jung, what becomes conscious no longer needs to control our lives from the shadows. And sometimes, the simple act of seeing a pattern clearly is the first moment it begins to lose its power. Recognizing a complex doesn't mean it disappears overnight. You may still feel fear. You may still become defensive. You may still find yourself pulled toward familiar patterns. The difference is that something has changed. You are no longer completely identified with them. Instead of saying, "This is who I am," you begin saying, "This is something happening within me." That may sound like a small distinction, but according to Jung, it changes everything. Because the moment we stop confusing ourselves with the pattern, we create the possibility of responding differently. The complex may still knock at the door, but it no longer has to be the one who answers it. Over time, those moments begin to grow. The pause becomes longer. The reactions become less automatic. The choices become more intentional. Life does not become perfect. It becomes more conscious. Jung believed this is the true direction of psychological growth, not eliminating every fear, not becoming someone who never struggles, but becoming someone who is no longer unconsciously ruled by old emotional patterns. Perhaps that is why real freedom feels quieter than we imagine. It is not the dramatic moment when every problem disappears. It is the quiet realization that, for the first time, you are living your life instead of reliving your past. And perhaps that is where every lasting transformation begins, not with changing the world around you, but with finally seeing the hidden patterns within you clearly enough to choose a different path. Perhaps the greatest mistake we make is believing that the hardest battles in life happen out in the world. Against other people, against difficult circumstances, against impossible odds. Carl Jung believed that some of our most important struggles take place somewhere much quieter, within the unseen patterns that shape the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we live. Most of those patterns were never consciously chosen. They were formed long before we understood what they were. Yet they continue influencing us until we become willing to see them. That is why awareness is so powerful. Not because it instantly changes our lives, but because it allows us to stop mistaking an old emotional pattern for our true identity. Jung never suggested that we could live without complexes. He believed they are part of being human. The goal was never to become someone with no wounds, no fears, or no unconscious reactions. The goal was to become conscious enough that those patterns no longer quietly direct our lives. Perhaps freedom is not becoming a completely different person. Perhaps it is finally recognizing the person who has been there all along, beneath every fear, every habit, and every story you have repeated for years. Because the moment you recognize the pattern, you are no longer completely inside it. And perhaps that single moment of awareness is where every meaningful change truly begins.